Now we're going to talk about actually building a Google app campaign starting from scratch. Assuming you've obviously set up your Gmail account, you've set up your Google Ads account, and you've added your billing details. What you see on the screen is the user interface that you should see. And again, we're not going to talk about what the different objectives are. We're going to zoom in specifically on what this growth series is about, which is mobile app growth. The very obvious objective we're going to choose is app promotion. As you can see here, it says get more installs, engagement, and pre-registration for your app. Pre-registration stands for pre-order. For some reason, Google has a different terminology, going back to the three main objectives we spoke about in the previous video. So we're going to choose that, and we'll breeze through this fairly quickly. We're going to choose app installs as our objective. And here's a very important point. So when you're setting up your first Google app campaign, you're going to have to segment your campaigns by two different platforms or two different devices. In this case, it would be Android and iOS, right? So Google and Apple. For the sake of simplicity, we'll just obviously create one campaign. We'll focus on Android. And it's probably worth it to, when we're naming our campaign, have some sort of a consistent taxonomy. So when I say taxonomy, it's usually used in the world of software development or software engineers. Taxonomy is just basically a hierarchy of a programming language, but in this case, it's a hierarchy of our naming convention. So we'll call this Android _ app install, and maybe we're targeting the UK specifically, so I'm going to add UK. And obviously we've chosen our type of device for this campaign, which is Android. Now we're going to have to look for the actual app name. For the sake of simplicity, I'll just use a random app. Let's just choose Spotify. You click on the app, that's obviously you're wanting to promote, so we click on that. Not that Spotify needs more promotion, but for the sake of simplicity, for the sake of showing an example. Awesome, so let's click on continue. We mentioned we're just gonna target the UK, so we'll just click on the UK. When you're choosing your location targeting, you can get a bit more granular. So as you can see here, if you just expand the location options, Google is going to ask you, do you want to target people that has presence or interest in the UK, or do you want people who actually, if they're regularly within targeted location, leave it as it is? There's another segment here once you expand location options, which is basically Google asking you here in the target segment, do you want to target people that are regularly in that specific location or have shown interest? I usually leave that as is. And the second option there is, do you want to target people regularly in that location only? You might think that you choose the second option because you just want to target who actually are within the location. But I find that you don't really need to mess around with this too much. If someone lives in a specific location and they're interested in that location, it's worth it to target those users, or at least serve them ad impressions. Again, when we talk about growth, especially now in performance marketing, generally speaking, the wider your net is, the better performance is, especially when we look at it from a long-term point of view. So we'll leave that as is. Languages, that's fairly obvious. We want to target people who speak English. Now, if you're a localized app or you want to have a specific budget for a different country, then obviously you would choose that specific language, whatever country that is. So if it's France, for example, you'd choose French here. Germany, you choose German, so on and so forth. If we click on more settings, this is basically Google asking you when is the start and end dates. Generally speaking, assuming we're going to launch the campaign today, we'll leave that as is, September 20, which is when I've shot the video. End date, again, if it's a seasonal campaign, you might have an end date, but generally speaking, if it's an always on campaign, you wouldn't necessarily have an end date. Data feed, we'll ignore that for now. Click on next. So remember in the previous video, I talked about all the things you need before you launch a campaign. So I actually have a templatized version of those things here. So we've got our ad copy. In terms of creatives, I have that in my folder. So it's not going to be shown here. And then it's asking me for the URL. First thing is Google asking is obviously for money, which is how they exist as a company. So we'll put £50 because that's what we plan to spend. Where it's asking what do you want to focus on, there's actually three options there. So install volume is pretty obvious. You want to get as many app installs as possible. The reason why in-app actions and in-app action value is grayed out is because we don't have our mobile measurement partner or our MMP events pushed out to Google Ads. Google can't optimize towards a conversion objective that it can't track data for. So in this case, for the sake of an example, we'll just choose install volume. But assuming we have our MMP pushed out to Google Ads or integrated, we might likely choose a different objective. If you're an e-commerce app, you might choose an in-app action value. So this might be a specific revenue of whatever that number is, £100 per conversion or £100 per purchase. You might want to optimize towards that, which is in the e-commerce space, really you optimizing for revenue and return on ad spend. But in this video, we'll keep it simple. Install volume. How do you want to track install volume? We'll keep that as is. What kind of users do you want to target? In this case, again, the other option is grayed out, so we'll just use all users. Target CPA or target cost per install, TCPI in short. Now, there's a good debate about this. Every performance marketer is going to give you their perspective. For me, if you're a startup and you're really just testing things out, part of me is really inclined of being efficient in terms of spend. But the more efficient you are in spend when you're starting out, you're slowing down the aspect of learning. And what you're really paying for when you're starting new campaigns is that insight, right? And that insight might not be the insight you want to see, but it's an insight that you need as a business, especially when you're starting out. You want to gather as many data points as possible in order for you to have a better strategy. So for me, it really depends on how much budget we have, but 80% of the time, I'd be very inclined to just remove this. So no target cost per install. It's likely going to fluctuate anyway. Beginning of the campaign, it might be more expensive as Google prospects ad impressions to those things that it's relevant for. And then after a month, that cost per install might be drastically down. So it's going to fluctuate. What's an average KPI for CPI? And then maybe we can add a target CPI after that insight. So we'll keep that unticked. Let's move on, or this video is going to be an hour long. As mentioned again, so I've created a templatized sheet for activating pretty much any campaign within Google, but I know the template name is called paid search, but this can be effective for Google app campaigns as well. So first thing is headlines. So I have a couple of headlines here. Obviously what I'll do is just copy and paste these. Don't worry too much about the ad copy. So we've done our headlines. Let's move on to descriptions. I'm not going to copy everything. This is just for the sake of example again. So images, what we'll do is, we can choose these. Again, this is just for example, right? Usually you would liaise with your creative team or your design team to give you the actual assets that you want to use. But let's just choose these ones for now. We click on save. Video, so the only way you're going to be able to upload videos to your Google App Campaign is with a YouTube link. So in this case, let me grab a dummy link somewhere. Let's actually use one of our videos. All right, let's choose this. Copy the link. We go back here, search YouTube. We copy and paste the link. We choose it. We click on save. And then remember I mentioned HTML5 files. So these are more dynamic coded files. This is generally used in programmatic display, but you can use it for your Google App Campaign as well. We don't have that currently, so we'll leave that for now. So we've added our headlines, our description, we've added some creatives, images, and videos. You might be wondering, okay, where's the final destination? Why is Google not asking for a final URL? The reason why is because for a Google App Campaign, it's automatically going to go to the Google Play Store as its end destination. Now, if you created a paid search campaign, you can actually decide where you want that final endpoint to be for your user if they click on the ad. But in this instance, because it's a Google App Campaign and we're trying to drive app downloads, it's directly going to go to the Play Store. So we'll click on next, and that's pretty much it. So you've named your campaign, your objectives, you've added in your budget, and you've decided what you're going to bid on, which is install volume. You've chosen your app, the country, your language, your ad group. So we'll get to that in a second. Let's just click publish campaign. I'm going to pause the campaign immediately because I'm not trying to spend £50 a day promoting Spotify. So what we'll do is on this aspect, we'll just pause it. All right, awesome. So now we've built our campaign. Let's imagine we publish the campaign. Let's actually understand briefly the Google Ads interface. So what I'm going to do is just go all the way back. So this video was shot in 2023 or at the end of 2023. I'm hoping you'll see exactly what I'm seeing here, but as in digital marketing, things change quite frequently, especially when you're talking about software. Especially Google might change this user interface within a couple of months. But this is the latest user interface, and hopefully it makes sense, and it's the exact one that you're seeing currently. We published the campaign. You're probably wondering, why is the user interface different? The reason why is if I go back all the way to what it looked like before, it's going to look like this, which is not the way it's supposed to, but because it's only a Google App Campaign we're running within this Google Ads account, it looks a bit more blank slated than it's meant to be. We're going to go back to an account where I'm actually running more activities than a Google App Campaign, so you can understand the Google Ads interface a bit more to what you're probably seeing in your Google Ads account. There's quite a lot to go through, and like I said, this is not a Google Ads tutorial. This is just launching a Google Ads campaign, but it's good to just go through some of the segments that I think are important when you're going through your Google Ads user interface. The main thing you want to be able to understand is where the hell is your campaign. So assuming you've launched your campaign, it's fairly simple. If you look at the left-hand side, you click on campaigns, and then you click on campaigns again, and you click on campaigns again. And this is where you'll see different types of campaigns you have, whether it's paid search, performance max, YouTube, discovery ads, or in this case, Google App Campaigns. And then in terms of the hierarchy of Google Ads, it starts with a campaign, then it moves on to an ad group, and then finally it's the actual ads themselves, right? So if we look at an ad group level, this is more of a segmented approach to an ad group. Is basically a way to segment your campaign, but you don't want to segment the spend. When we're talking about Google App Campaign specifically, the question is, why should you have more than one ad group if you're only advertising one app? The simple answer is that if you have one app, but you want to test out different messagings using your creatives, it's very likely you'd want to test that out within the same campaign. What you'll do is you'll have your main campaign, and within that, let's say you have 3 different types of creatives with different propositions or different types of messaging, and you want to A/B test which is the strongest one, which has the highest click-through rates, conversion rates, and so on. You would then have 3 different ad groups. Let's say you have £100 a day in your current campaign. That £100 will be equally distributed towards your 3 different ad groups in this case. Because you're optimizing towards app installs, it's very likely after a couple of days or a couple of weeks, you'll see most of that spend go towards the ad group that's performing better, the ad group that's giving you more app installs or app volumes in this case. And that's a great way for you to essentially A/B test within Google App Campaigns. Hence, you would use more than one ad group for that specific purpose. Apart from that, I don't really see any use case in segmenting your Google App Campaigns and having more than 2 ad groups for no other reason apart from that. So something to keep in mind. For paid search, for Performance Max, it's going to be a different conversation that I can answer that, just not in this video. Once you click on the app campaign you have, again, you assume you have one ad group, you click on ad group. This is where you can actually see your assets or your creative assets or marketing assets, different terminologies, your images, your videos, your headlines, descriptions. If you click on the blue pencil icon there, click on edit ad, you'll go back to a fairly similar user interface that we saw when we were just publishing the campaign. So we got your headlines, your descriptions, images, videos, and so forth. Assuming you've connected your mobile measuring partner to your Google Ads interface or your Google Ads accounts, you'd want to understand, what are we actually tracking? Where can I see my conversions? All you have to do is click on goals, named quite correctly. Within the summary section, you should be able to see all the different conversions you're tracking, or Google calls it conversion actions. And if you look at where it says conversion source, that's where you can see where it's coming from. Is it coming from GA4? Is it coming from a third-party analytics platform, which is usually your MMP, mobile measuring partner? Or is it coming from Firebase, which is basically Google's own app analytics software? And if we click on view all conversion actions, we can actually see them all a lot easier. So you can see more. It's easier to see all your conversions in a visual manner, basically. You can even quality assure it. So let's say you've been running the campaign for a month. You can filter your date here, let's say last month, and you can see where your conversions are coming from, which conversion actions. You would click on all conversions in this case, and yeah, you'd filter it that way. You'd see which is bringing you the most volume. All right, so there's quite a lot in there, and there could be a lot more. I should probably create a separate course for that. Let me know if that's of interest. Like I mentioned in the previous video, once you have your assets ready, your app is live within the Google Play Store. Launching a campaign, especially Google App Campaign, takes, well, less than 5 minutes really if you compress it down. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.